Good morning. It is Energy Audit Thursday, and we are talking about emotions today. Emotions are data. Listen, your emotions aren't your enemy, they're your messenger. Your emotions are not your enemies, they're your messengers. Emotions are data, you guys. Don't delete them, don't stuff them. We're going to learn how to interpret them on today. All right, listen, you were taught to dismiss emotions like distractions, right? We were all taught to push our emotions down, right? Don't feel, right? But you can't heal what you won't reveal. All right. So again, we were taught to dismiss emotions like distractions, to stuff down our anger, to in some way spiritually bypass a lot of our emotions. So spiritualize our anxiety and slap a smile over our pain, right? Like in some way, we were taught to basically fake it till you make it. In my research, I talk about this thing called cultural dissimilance, right? And what cultural dissimilance was this appearance on the outside of being okay. And it was a part of racism, right? So women had cultural disseminants, where as African American women, we portrayed this look or this status on the outside that we were okay just to survive and thrive, right? When really on the inside we wasn't. And that cultural dissemblance actually transition from culture to culture to culture. So we'll slap a smile on pain and say we're okay when we're really not okay. But today we're flipping the narrative, you guys. We aren't interpreting we're not going to interrupt this. We're going to look at our emotions or learn to build a different relationship and look at our emotions as information. All right. Good morning, big little brother. How are you doing this morning? Okay, listen. So today in Project Life Season 2, this time is personal. We're going to be learning how to really read our emotional messages. All right. Like I said, I know so many of us were taught to not be emotional. How was we taught that? Like, just say if you got in trouble, you got a whooping, was like, don't cry, right? If you like you kind of got in trouble for crying, if your feelings got hurt, it's like you're a big boy, big boys don't cry, right? It was just like these very subtle messages that really disconnected us from our emotions. If you did get hurt by a friend, or if you were in a relationship and a girl hurt you, or a male hurt you, if there was this kind of dismissing, like they don't deserve your emotions, like don't cry over them, right? These very subtle and sometimes very big messages that we receive to really like unplug us from our emotions. And then we have that big one, which is like, your heart is deceptive. And I do know it speaks about your heart being deceptive in the Bible, or biblically it does speak about your heart, but it also says that the truth flows from your heart too, right? So everything that flows, it flows from your heart. So it is so important for us to understand this thing of emotion, right? And why it's so important to who we are. And when we start to like disconnect from our emotional person, it really can leave us in this very disdained dis-ease, right? And a condition of like not really connecting with one another. Listen, emotional fluency and the nerve today we're talking about emotional fluency and nervous system regulation. What emotions have you been trying to avoid, and what might be and what these emotions may be trying to teach you? Again, we are emotional people. So I've showed this graph many a times, but I want to show it to you again because I want you to see like all of the emotions you have. This is called an emotional wheel. We have all of these emotions, but sometimes we're only stuck. If you go in the middle of this emotional wheel, sometimes we're only stuck with these center emotions. We only focus on sadness, or we only focus on anger, right? But even under anger, there's so many emotions, right? There's frustrated, there's aggression, there's mad, there's hostile, right? There's numb, right? So when we can learn how to really express our anger in a more detailed way, when we can learn how to express our sadness, like, are you lonely? Do you feel guilty? Are you hurt? Right? Do you feel isolated? Right? All of those emotions are under sadness. So it's just so important for us to understand all of these emotions that we're stuffing, and not just look at our emotions as like this one and done, like I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm angry, right? This very broad stroke. All right. So I have a question for you on this morning. What emotions are you judging instead of interpreting? Because again, as you see in the thumbnail, emotions are data and they're sending us information. And if we're not using that information to really to better ourselves or to heal ourselves, then we're not interacting with life in a way that's going to provide us with the information that we need as we move, so that we can grow and heal and connect, right, in our love of self, our interactions with others, our focus and emotions. And then we're going to, in a sense, have this possibly have this mentality that nothing is working because we're not taking the data that we're collecting back. So um I really did this session because I know that you've been taught that emotions make you weak. All right. That anger is a problem, that sadness is an inconvenience, right? And again, in these very subtle ways, like we really feel like emotions are our enemy. All right. And I know that even been taught that if you feel too much, you're unstable. Okay. But here's the truth: your emotions are very sacred. All right. They're very sacred. They are not the problem. They are actually your messengers. So suppressing them won't won't make you more spiritual, won't make you more balanced. Like when you suppress your emotions, you're suppressing a big part of who you are. And it's so funny to me because we will suppress our emotions, but we will, I don't know, engage and involve with other people's emotions, right? In a sense, we'll suppress our own love, we'll suppress our own anger, we'll suppress our own sadness, but we will comfort other people in their sadness. And we seek or want other people to love us, right? We'll say, I'm not going to love a person until they do da 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 da. So actually, you want a person to love you before you activate your own love, right? Listen, suppressing these emotions doesn't make you more of a human being or anything like that. Interpreting them, though, will help you to become healed and whole. All right. So why am I doing this session today? Because I've watched too many people try to fast their way fast their way out of grief, right? Fasting and praying, right? Really just bypassing, just feel it, right? At this grown age of an adult, you're not going to be in trouble for feeling your emotions. You're not going to get a whooping, right? For for feeling your emotions. Now, I know that wasn't always the case, right? When you were younger, there probably wasn't a space for your emotions. But as you grow and become an adult, you become the king or the queen over you, and you get to say, like, you get to create and carve out space so that you can experience your emotions. So again, I've watched too many people fast their way through grief, worship their way past anger, and then over really spiritualize their nervous system. Um, over spiritualized when their nervous system was really trying to heal them. You guys, listen. So this lesson isn't about learning the language. This lesson is about learning the language of your body so that you can stop shaming your emotions and start really decoding them. Again, like I said, I think we can be there for other people emotionally. And as we wrap up this week, I really want you to give yourself permission to be there for yourself emotionally. Or we want people to comfort our sadness. We want people to understand our anxiety. We want people to see that we may have some depression. Like we want that from people, but we won't do that for ourselves, right? When it comes up for us, and I'll talk about this later, we have this like, what's wrong with me mentality, right? And it's nothing wrong with you. It's an emotion, and emotions want to be experienced. All right. So my disclaimer for this morning is this isn't about indulging every feeling. It's really about interrupting the ones that are repeating, right? So remember, if your mental part is on a pattern and you are patterned a certain way mentally in your behaviors, then you have to know that that is also a part of the emotion, right? So the emotion is patterned as well. So you're not broken to feel these emotions deeply. You're just being invited to listen now with intent, with intention. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this: if you don't start listening to these emotions and really setting with them and building a different relationship with them, that very thing that you're scared of happening, you're probably more inviting that in, right? The big crash, the overwhelm, the not, like, the more you kind of resist this emotion, the more that thing that you're resisting, that you want to happen, right, the more likely it is to happen. So we want to start to learn how to embrace our emotions, start to braid our emotions in, start to really say, and being honest, because there's the law of correspondence. So when I say that I am sad, that automatically means that there's a space of happiness for me. All right. When I say that I am angry, right, there, that means that by the law of correspondence, there is automatically the opposite that is available for me in that moment, because that is a universal law. So claiming one does not, like, isolate you to that. It actually opens up the corresponding emotion that you're seeking. And that's why I communicate with people when we have these contracting emotions, right? The expansive emotion is right there to be had, to be experienced. But a lot of times we're not experiencing the expansive emotion, right? Because we won't even admit, or we will suppress, or we won't even identify the contracting emotion, if that's sadness, if that's whatever that is, right? We won't acknowledge it or comfort it or have any compassion for it or understanding for it. Why? Because we judged it as wrong, right? And it's not wrong. It's just data. It's data. All right. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is Energy Audit Thursday, and we're talking about energy and emotions on today as we wrap up this week's Rewrite Your Script, right? So this whole month was about story, right? Rewriting your story. So we talked about the S and the T and the O, owning your truth last week, right? This week we're talking about the rewriting your script. You are not obligated to live from the stories they handed you, right? And a big part of the obligated is you're not obligated to live from this space of being disconnected from your emotions anymore. They may not have worked in your last relationship. They may not have worked, in the home that you grew up in. But the longer you stay in disconnect with this important information system called your emotions, then the heavier, right, that weight is going to be. And that experience that you're trying to have in life, only wanting to be happy, only wanting peace, only wanting, I just feel like it's so interesting, when I see stuff like people, like, basically just don't have no tolerance for anyone's emotion. And what that tells me is that you don't have tolerance for your own emotion. So if you don't have tolerance for people, and people being imperfect because of how it makes you feel emotionally, and that tells me that because you don't want to feel that, because you don't want to feel let down, because you don't want to feel sad, because you don't want to feel these emotions, then you don't really have a tolerance to experience life in its fullness, right? In its full totality. Now, that doesn't mean that we allow people to walk over us, or that we allow people to do anything or say anything with us, but having compassion for yourself, right, extends to other people, right? Having an understanding of our own emotions gives us the space for other people to have, right, this emotion, or have their emotional experience, right? But we have become such a rigid society that our kids can't have emotional experiences, right? I mean, we couldn't have emotional experiences in front of our parents, right? And so we've taken that model, and now, like, our friends can't have emotional experiences in front of us. Our mates only can express a certain level of emotional experience. Like, the only way you can be in my space is if you bring me peace, or the only way we can be together is if you perfect and don't let me down, right? And it's all really a facade, right? It's all really a facade, and it's not true, because the people who are saying that on the outside, we automatically know you're dealing with a totally different relationship. People are letting you down. You're very emotional when you get home. But if you're not taking ownership of that experience, then in some way you're suppressing a whole lot of who you are and what you're experiencing, and so that alignment that you're looking for in life is not authentically happening, because so much of the experience that you're having, or what you're saying, or what you're doing, is not even aligned with your human condition, so good morning. It is Energy Audit Thursday. You guys, I feel good, right? I'm feeling good today. I hope that you're feeling good today. I went to sleep last night. I went to sleep. I like literally yesterday it rained so much, and I just felt like this is a nice time to rest. And I like got in my bed and I like kissed my grandma, good night, hugged and kissed my auntie, good night. And I laid down and I went to bed. So I'm feeling rested on today. This is your time. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons with Dr. Sheila Little. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Sheila Little, clinical therapist for 20 years and the creator of the Stop and Now method. You are on Life Lessons, okay? Life Lessons is a part of Project Life, and Project Life is where we turn theory into practice. And this week, we're talking about rewriting your script. And we're wrapping this week up today with emotions, right? Your emotions. So, good morning. Take your deep breath, right? A deep, long breath. This is your time, right? No judgment, just your presence on this Thursday, this Energy Audit Thursday. All right. So let's scan our bodies. This week we have been doing a sun pour, right? In a sense, we're focusing on kindness as we rewrite our script, and that was very intentional. We only know what we know until we know something different, and sometimes I feel like with these life lessons, they're very insightful. And I think that, and I don't just get this from this life lessons. I also get it from people I work with, like if I would have known this, or if, and that's just not a kind way to be with ourselves. We only know what we know until we know something different. And if we believe in divine rhythm, then you knowing this at this moment is when you were supposed to know it. So we want to be more kind with ourselves. The other part of introducing kindness this week is the other part of introducing kindness this week is truly making sure that we are giving to ourselves what we want. We are giving to ourselves what we want from other people. All right. So being able to introduce kindness into our bodies and to our minds, right, is really allowing us to be a magnet for that from other people. All right. Good morning, Pep. Good morning, Mama Sharon. Um, everyone that so good morning, Mama Sharon. Good morning, Sal. Your emotions are messengers. They make us who we are. Yes, yes. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Feeling our feet on the floor. So again, we have the sun over our head. This could be anything. I want you to just think about the sun. Has nothing to do with woo-woo, but because we're working with the reptilian brain, right? When we're doing this visualization, we want to use images, right? To really help our body understand. And we know that the what's called the reptilian brain, or the mammalian part of us, right, doesn't understand language. All right. And that's why it understands emotions. So that's why we want to be particular with our language, so that our language is triggering a specific emotion that's communicating safety to our brains, right? And so sometimes even in how we speak, it's creating an emotion of resistance, right? So if I speak something like, I just don't want to get hurt, what emotion do you think is being triggered when I say that? Right? Maybe the fear, maybe some fear, some sadness, right? Right. My mind may go into images of what it would look like to be hurt, right? And so that language of I don't want to be hurt is like triggering some type of subconscious emotion that's communicating to my mammalian brain, or this reptilian, this old brain. We're just gonna call it your old brain, um, to protect, right? To protect and to and scan the environment for that. So I'm only paying attention to what people who may hurt me. So that's all I see. If I say something like I want love and connection in my life, right? that starts to give me images of what love and connection is, right? So it starts to, I can see like what that looks like with my friends and my family and my mate, right? So when I use more affirming language, right, an emotion is created in me or images are created in me of what that looks like. Like I want love, I want attention, I want my man to come in the house and like hug on me, right? So now though those words create these images. And a lot of times we think that when we say what we don't want, that our mind is hearing us, but it's not, right? So when we're doing this meditation, it's not about, or this scan, or this bringing everything together. It's not about anything woo woo. It's how we're communicating to our mind that we're filling ourselves with kindness, right? So having the sun above our head, in a sense, dripping down into our heads and filling us up like you would fill water up in a pitcher. So if I was pouring water into this, it would drop to the bottom of this bottle before it actually fills up, right? That is an image of filling myself up. My old brain sees that like, oh, I'm being full, right? I'm being full of what? Light. What does light represent? Nurture, right? And so that's a feeling of kindness, right? That's a feeling of connection. That's a feeling of being taken care of. So we want to do that. So if you have some resistance to imageries and things like that, please note that it has nothing to do with like witchcraft or like anything like that. It's how we're communicating to the part of our brain that don't understand words. All right. So let's have that sun, or you can have water or whatever it is. You can act like you're in a shower and it's just a cleaning process, right? And it's filling you up from the bottom. So your feet on the floor, coming up your legs. And I'm explaining that especially to people of my color, right, and race, because I do feel like um, that as a culture, we have a relationship with religion, right? And religion has truly made a lot of practices, demonized a lot of practices in a sense, like you can't meditate, scanning your body is off, all of that is demonic, right? And in some way, like, wait, a part of just the human being, right, needs awareness, needs attention. And so we have to understand how science plays into life, how divinity plays into life, and who we really are as spiritual beings. And a big part of that is back to today's session, right? Understanding how to express emotion, right? And feel this emotion with the faith, right? That God gave us this emotion for a reason, to give us information. And this old brain was by design, right? And if research is saying that it doesn't understand words, then what images can I give it? And how am I going to do that if I don't visualize, if I don't pretend, right? In a sense, if I don't do these things to activate that. So as we're feeling this coming up our legs, our thighs, right? Just filling up our body with some kindness on today, right? Our torso, just touching every part, every organ in our body, every cell, right? Being full of this sunlight or this water, whatever that thing is that you need to pour into you on today that represents some kindness, some compassion, some love, right? It can even represent God, right? God pouring into you, if that's what you're comfortable with. Up our chest, filling our chest fill up. If we have any heaviness, right? In a sense, it's not removing it, right? But we're building a different relationship with it. So it's kind of like it's comforting that pain that's in our chest and all the cracks that we feel and all of that, that this this liquid or this fluid or this kindness is in some way going in and sealing up all of those cracks to be made whole again, right? Not removing them, but building a different relationship with them, right? Down our shoulders, pouring down our arms, right? All of our muscles, right? Restoring our muscles if we went and worked out, right? Um, if we're not working out, sending a message to get us to move, right? Just being very kind to our arms today. All right, activating our hands, filling our hands up. As that fills up, we feel it coming up our necks, right? Opening up or securing our throat chakra, right? Our face, calming our face, just giving us a glow on today, right? Just allowing us to glow. Our nose is our nose, our ears, our eyes, activating our brains, right? Balancing our brains. Some of us are so logical. Some of us are so creative, but bringing some balance and allowing the brain to communicate with each other, right? Both sides of the brain. Okay. And then out the top of our head, and just kind of out the top of our head. And as you would pour water in a glass and you would see that water kind of roll off the glass, we're going to have that roll off of us in that way, right? And just kind of washing us down, wiping it down on this morning, right? Right. Yeah, drop a word in the chat. Let me know. Drop a word in the chat that describes what your emotion is trying to say to you today, or how are you feeling today, right? Drop a word in the chat. As we go into our session, I want you to know who this session is for today. This is for you if you were taught to suppress rather than feel. If you've been carrying anxious or sadness or resentment, right, without language for it, if you're ready to really listen to your emotions without judgment, if your body has been whispering, crying, or screaming, listen, this lesson is for you on this morning. All right. Again, what is our quote or our guiding thought for this morning? Emotions are data. Don't delete them. Interpret. Okay. So let's discuss today's show. Emotions are not distractions, you guys, from your spiritual life. They direct your truth. All right. Anxiety often points you to something that's misaligned. Anger often points to a boundary that's been crossed. Okay. Sadness often points to something unprocessed. Guilt often points to internalized expectations. All right. Emotions aren't random, they're actually road signs, and your job isn't to ignore them, it's to become fluid in relationship with what they're trying to say. All right. I had a client that I worked with who kept calling herself lazy. All right. She just kept calling herself lazy. But what we uncovered was this deep, deep burnout and grief and resentment for over functioning or for having to overfunction. Her body wasn't resisting the work, you guys. It was just begging for rest. And every time she went and got rest, because she was exhausted, she would judge herself as like, I'm lazy because I didn't go do the dishes. I'm lazy because I didn't, wash the clothes like I said I was. I'm lazy. I'm lazy. I'm lazy. And it's like, let's unpack this, because you are a high performer. Maybe it's something else. And when we unpack that again, she was just burnt out, right? And so her body was just like, when she got home, I just need to rest. Listen, once she listened, instead of shaming herself, she stopped spiraling, you guys, and really started her healing process. I had another client that felt anger every time she visited her family, right? She thought she was just being too sensitive when she would feel this anger. But when we decoded it, guess what? Her body was telling her, your needs are being ignored and you don't feel safe, right? Now, this was one of those subtle emotions. And I feel like we may feel this around people, but because we're not listening, we will project, we will get home and get mad at our kids and our mate, right? And you're like, what's wrong? Or you may feel this from somebody else and not really know how to process it with that person. Stuff it in yourself. Listen, emotions are not weakness, okay? They're wisdom. And when we start to notice how we feel, like that unpleasantry, then we really have to start asking ourselves the questions. Now, for some people, it may come up right then. For some people, though, it may take months, and years to understand their emotions. And I would say this: if you can give months and years to another person, right, in a relationship in hopes that they would be your husband or be your wife, or, and some of us have given 8, 9, 10 years, 15 years to people, right? Waiting on them to make a decision on us, we can give that to ourselves. Like, it's in some way we want uh we'll give other people time after time after time, but when we look at ourselves, it's like, well, I don't got time to we want it immediate, right? We want to immediately understand our emotions. We want to immediately understand what we're going through. And it's like, but what if it took a year to understand what you're doing, for you to thaw enough to really understand that maybe this is not sadness, maybe it is anger, maybe it's not, laziness, maybe it's burnt outness, right? Maybe you're not angry, maybe you're bitter, right? Right? All of that comes with time. And again, if we can invest our time in people, places, things, and other experiences, We can learn how to invest our time in ourselves, right? And that's financially, that's with our own presence, right? So that we can be better for ourselves and the people that come around us. So here's our mirror moment. I want you to pause. I want you to think about what emotion keeps repeating for you right now. What emotions do you find yourself in? All right. And what are these emotions trying to communicate that you have been trying to control, right? What is the emotion trying to communicate that you have been trying to control, suppress, or ignore? All right. So in this mirror moment, I want you to know that this session is all about identifying again your emotions as data. All right. To not delete them, but to really start interpreting it, to interpret them, right? And this is a deeply personal pause because it is really designed to shift, right? To shift your relationship with your own feelings. And like I said, a big part of us are not in relationship with our own feelings, right? We have, made them feel like flowers in the attic. Go somewhere, get upstairs, get over there. I don't have time for you right now, right? That's how we treat these aspects of us. But then when other people treat us like that, it's like we're offended and we want to cut them off, and we feel like, why doesn't nobody love me, or why nobody supports me? When the truth of the matter is that's how you're treating yourself subconsciously, right? And as you're treating yourself like that subconsciously, you're subconsciously teaching other people to treat you like that and to dismiss you. All right. All right. So in this pause isn't about taking a breath. It's about really stopping the emotional autopilot, because most people don't digest their emotions. They either dismiss them with the "I'm fine." They distract from them with the strolling, the shopping, the eating, the staying busy. Right? Like we've packed our calendars up. We're so busy, right? We're strolling, we're eating, we're shopping, right? We're keeping ourselves so occupied so we won't feel that feeling that comes in the pit of our throat, in our throat, that knot, the feeling that comes in our chest, right? Right? Or so either we distract them when I'm fine, we distract them, right, with the scrolling, or we judge them, right? We judge them, we judge ourselves for even having them, right? So why is this sadness here? I must be wrong, right? So this pause, this mirror moment, is sacred, and it's a space between what it's a space that we're gonna hold to really shift the what's wrong with me, right? Because I do think when certain emotions come up, that's the first thing we think. Like if sadness comes, it's like, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? Even when we see a person in sadness, it's like, what's wrong? Right? As if sadness is wrong, right? So what is this emotion here for? Right? So tell me about this, right? So tell me what's going on, right? When we see a person in sadness, like, well, tell me what's going on. How can I support you in this emotion, right? Right? Because the sadness could be all the way right feeling for this moment, right? If you just lost someone, right? If you're grieving an experience, right? Sadness is not wrong in that moment. All right. All right. Sadness is the right feeling to be felt. Okay. All right, so I have some questions for you. What emotion keeps repeating for you right now? The key to this is repeating. Why? Because repeated emotions are invitations. It's your body feedback loop asking you to respond instead of react. So is it the frustration every morning or every Monday morning, right? Is it anxiety before a conversation with a certain person? Is it the guilt after setting boundaries? Whatever keeps resurfacing is not by chance or by flaw, right? It's a flag. It's your job, and your job isn't to stuff it, right? It's to study it. It's to ask why it's there, and to get a therapist and talk to that, all right, through that. Another question I want you to think about is what is this emotion trying to communicate, right? Right? And what is this emotion trying to communicate? And are you trying to control that? Okay. So this is a shift from reaction to reflection. So emotions don't need to be controlled, you guys. They need to be interpreted. And here's the thing, this is why I say that a lot of us are emotionally constipated, because we're trying to process an emotion, like control a thought, right? Control it, when really it needs to be investigated, right? We need to allow it to be felt get the data from it, right? And interpret what's going on with us so that the emotion can digest. And at some point of that, it's about allowing that feeling to come up to be felt. All right. All right. So um this question is here, or this reflection is here to really help you to create some emotional fluency. Like anxiety might be saying that you don't feel safe. You don't feel safe here. You don't feel safe in the work. You don't feel safe in the experience that you're having with your life right now, right? Sadness may be saying you haven't grieved what you lost. And here's the thing, grief is not just about a person. Maybe it's an experience, maybe it's an idea, maybe it's a life that you thought that you would have, but you're not experiencing that life, right? And so some of us, that happened in our 20s and 30s, and we still haven't grieved that part of it. We've just shut it down. All right. What is it about what guilt? Guilt may be saying that you've outgrown this, but you feel loyal to it, right? And I talked about loyalty, the difference between loyalty and obedience, right? So obedience, God is telling you to move, right? But in this move and you being obedient to what you feel like your life was called to do, this guilt is coming up, right? So you've outgrown whatever that is, but you feel loyal to it. So there's this guilt. So how do we process that, or how do we allow that guilt to be digested without thinking that we're wrong, thinking that something is wrong with us, right? And pulling us back to that space again. And then anger may be saying your boundaries have been violated, right? And you silenced yourself again. And so this anger comes up and now you want to blow up, right? This is how we really learn how to stop suppressing and start listening, not just to our emotions, you guys, but spiritually and somatically, which is why we do that pause, which is why we scan our bodies, to really see where's the emotion at, right? To really be kind to ourselves and really start to rewrite this narrative. All right. Good morning. Good morning, sister. Latasha Scott, how are you doing this morning? She said, I don't feel guilty for setting boundaries and I don't understand why. I do feel guilty for setting boundaries and I don't understand why. It's the loyalty thing, right? So when you start to set boundaries, a part of you, and this is a good reflection, right? A part of you, when you start to set boundaries, your intelligence understands that, let's say, let's think about a number. So number 1 through 10. So I've allowed people to take me to 10, for 10, 20, 30 years, right? I've allowed you to take me to 10. And now, and so that built a rhythm, that built some type of relationship or understanding or expectation, or even a dance between me and these people. But what you come to realize is that I don't want to go to 10 anymore. I'm only going to allow you to go to 3, right? Now you set the boundary at 3, right? So when you get to 3, there's a part of your intelligence that understands that you've allowed them to go to 10, right? And so the guilt is that you're no longer accepting that, and it's similar to your nervous system saying, do we really want to hold a 3? Because if and it's kind of like, if because if they what if they can't accept your 3, right? So a part of it is I don't want to be rejected, right? What if they can't, what if they don't understand your 3? What if they don't even understand why you're going to 3? So really that guilt is basically, what I'm trying to say is that your intelligence understands that you're not doing what you used to do, and the guilt is there to get you to address that, to get you to see this loyalty that you had to 10. Do you still want to be loyal to 10, or are you going to stay here at 3, right? And the goal is to, and that's why it's your work to establish boundaries, is to allow your system, your 150 billion cells, to say 3 is safe. So yes, we're going to stay at 3. And I could feel this guilt. And it makes sense that I will feel guilty because I allowed them to go to 10 before. But 3 is safe now. And they're going to respond and they're not going to like it and all of that stuff, right? Because I've allowed it. But we're safe at 3. And every time guilt comes up, you just say, but we're safe at 3 and we don't have to go to 10 every time it pushes, right? I hope that was a good way to explain it, right? Because I think that when you can see numbers, you can see, oh, I used to let you go here, but now I'm stopping you here. And when I stop you here, I start to feel guilty because you still want me to allow you to go here. And now I got to hold firm to this 3 line when both of us know that me and you used to be here at 10. but I'm stopping at 3. And that's where that guilt comes up. And that's where the dissonance starts to happen within you, because you understand that you used to allow 10 to happen. And so that's why boundaries are your work, because you're the one who's changing. And a lot of times we want the other person to change. So we, in a sense, we want to put a boundary in place so other people can change. But boundary is your work, right? Because your intelligence understand that they're right. They're absolutely right. I used to be doing that 10 stuff. We used to dance well at 10, right? And 10 created a certain expectation for us. But now I'm not allowing that anymore. So I changed, right? And that's a huge responsibility. And that's a lot of integrity to say, I changed. And you have the right to be mad. And so in having a boundary, we're also giving people rights to be upset, to not like them, right? We're not talking about their level of disrespect for me, right? You're not respecting my boundary. Well, they should be mad because you allowed them to be a 10 for 20, 30 years. And now because you changed and said that don't work for me no more, you just want everybody to comply. That ain't fair. That ain't compassionate, right? And that's why we start to feel guilt. All right. Pep said, Amen. Good morning, Pep. How are you? So here's 5 things I need you to know about here's 5 things I need you to know about our mirror moment to really help you move differently. All right. So number 1, your emotions are not interrupters, they're messengers. All right. Number 2, anger is often clarity in disguise, you guys. I always say that anger is the first outwardly expressed emotion. Like you could see a person who's angry, right? But anger is very much clarity in disguise, because, like I said, anger is that thing that's saying, hey, you've been violated, right? Are you going to do something about it? Right? Are you just going to stuff it? Are you just going to not say it? And a lot of times we will be like, well, I don't like conflict, so I'm not going to say anything, which starts to create what? Bitterness inside of us, which starts to make us go inward, all right? Or project, or just explode, right? Because each emotion only can be felt for so long or have a capacity. All right. Number 3, anxiety isn't weakness, you guys. It's your body's request for safety. So so many people are feeling anxious these days, right? This anxiety where we feel emotionally overwhelmed, right? Our sensory is as if your sensory system is in some way um like dismantling, right? And it's really just your nervous system saying, hey, I don't feel safe. Now, understand that that comes on both sides of the lens. So when you start to heal, you will start to feel anxiety. Why? Because the nervous system is nervous. It's saying like, hey, something is going on here. This is not the protocol, right? And then on the bottom side of it, right, we get anxious because we're really in fight, right? That there's actually some fear, some uncomfortability, or some reason to feel safe. So we don't get to choose when we feel angry. When we feel anxiety, anxiety can happen in our healing process and when we're actually in an unsafe environment, because all the nervous system knows that this is different. All right. So what we want to absolutely do is know how to build a different relationship with anger. With anxiety, right? Build a different relationship with it. Learn how to breathe, right? And constantly communicate with ourselves that we're safe. All right. Because again, anxiety isn't a weakness, it's your body's request for safety. All right. So even when we're trying to establish that boundary, like you said, Latasha, or I don't know, trying to process because we just got um bumped in a car accident, right? Anxiety is going to happen in both of those situations. So we have to have something that we're doing once we realize that we're safe, that grounds us, right? That communicates that, okay, I'm safe, and not allow the anxiety to to take us. All right. Number 4, emotional, and I have to come back and say this, and that is happens with practice, right? So the more you do that, the more you learn how to manage anxiety. And anxiety is not something that's ever going to go away. So you're going to feel anxiety for the rest of your life, right? So it's not this thing that once I learn how to like manage it, it's going to go away. No, you're going to feel anxiety. Why? Because you're in relationships. So when you have grandkids, right, and your grandkids go out, you're going to have some anxiety about that. If you have a new job or a position, you're going to have anxiety. Anxiety is a part of our life experience. If you're driving and you see a car speeding up behind you fast, you're going to feel some anxiety, right? So anxiety is a part of our life experience. It's not something that we fix. It's something that we come into relationship with, and we build a different relationship with it. All right. Emotional fluency, number 4, is spiritual maturity. You guys, being able to move. What is emotional fluency? Being able to move from emotion to emotion, right? To be able to allow these emotions to work like chain links together, and not just take this emotion out like, oh, I just never want to feel anxiety again. So I'm going to basically disassociate myself with that emotion. Like, no, a part of being spiritually mature is understanding every range of emotion, right? Even if we think about Yahshua Messiah, Jesus story, right? Like, he felt all type of, he felt anger, he felt fear, right? He felt confidence. He knew who he was, like, right? So he had a level of emotional fluency. He even had compassion. He even understood that people were going to do what they were going to do, right? He knew that these individuals that was his disciples were not perfect, which is why he knew, like, you gonna betray me, right? And it's okay, because you were part of the human condition, right? Right, you're going to and then sometimes even got frustrated with him. And I always think about Jesus' cadence, especially when I'm reading the Bible, because when they was on that boat, and the storm was coming and the water was flying everywhere, and they're like, Jesus trying to waking them up out of sleep. I could just see old grumpy man waking up out of sleep, like, don't listen, why is y'all waking me up? In a sense, have not I done enough to show y'all that this storm is not going to do anything to us? Like, I don't think he woke up like in this very calm, like, because even the way it's worded, right? It's kind of worded like, listen, do y'all not know who y'all with? You know, I love. I feel like that Jesus had a lot of character and a lot of emotion, right? So and felt all these different emotions. So in being the most spiritually mature individuals, right, we have to learn how to build different relationships with this emotion. All right, and then last but not least, you can't regulate what you refuse to name. Okay, and like I said, based on the law of correspondence, right? We have emotion. We're going to have emotion there. So sadness automatically corresponds with happiness, and that means that there's an opportunity to be happy. But are we in the right environments? And I think that is the ultimate question, right? Are we in the right environments um, to activate, right, that corresponding emotion? I have a friend, and certain people do certain things, right? And so me and her have this running joke where so she had ended up getting into like an accident or whatever, and so I go up to her, and she's like anxious, right? Because we talk about anxiety, so she's overwhelmed with anxiety. She might be, she might get on me for sharing this, but so she's overwhelmed with anxiety, right? And so she's crying, and like, so remember, there's this law of correspondence. So anxiety is the comfort, right? The polar opposite of that is comfort. And coming around the corner, right, was an individual that she knew. And that individual got out the car, and it happened to be an individual of the opposite sex, right? But it instantly, when that individual got out the car, and just so happenstance to be driving by, it wasn't a call or anything like that, just saw her and pulled up. And when I tell you, you could see that corresponding emotion. So she went from anxiety to like a smile on her face. Like he kind of did these jokes or whatever. And it was such a pleasure to see this correspondence happening right before me. Like, I just had seen her breaking down and crying and not really knowing. And then life, right, brung this individual that moved her to this corresponding emotion of peace and contentment and laughter. And so, now we're laughing, same accident that she was just pouring down crying about, But now it's like, okay, so who do we call? Now we become solution focused, and now the conversation happens right there within a 20-minute span. So the question is, do you have the right environment and people around you that can take you to your corresponding emotion? And some of us just don't have that. And that is what our emotion may be trying to communicate to you, that the environment is not receptive to the corresponding emotion. Because even my presence in that instant did not activate the correspondence of peace, of the peace that she was looking for in her anxiety. And I mean, I'm okay with that, but I'm saying, do we have those people in our life? All right. Um, so again, emotions are not data. I mean, emotions are data, not definitions, right? They inform. They do not define. And we need to stop trying to use emotions to define who we are, and more emotions to inform who we are. And I think that we need to stop doing that with ourselves and stop doing that with other people. All right. Why does this matter? Because without emotional clarity, we overreact, we over apologize, and we self abandon. So when we don't use our emotions as information, when we start to try to define what the emotion is, good, and what do I mean by that? So we define it as good, a good emotion, like love is a good emotion, sadness is a bad emotion. Oh, I must be feeling this way because, right? So we're trying to actually define what the emotion is versus allowing the emotion to inform us. Okay, is it time to connect, right? Is it time to step back? Is it time to pause, right? Because some sadness is up. Is it time to grieve, right? And instead of allowing that emotion to come up and inform us, we're trying to find it. And without emotional clarity, right, when we're defining and over defining and over defining, guess what? We're overreacting, we're over apologizing, and we're self-abandoning ourselves. All right. The real value in knowing that is that interpreting your emotion actually helps you to build trust with your body. And that is what we're trying to do at this grown age of an adult. We're trying to get in better relationship with our body, because when I can get better relationship with my body, then the people that comes into my environment will, my body will communicate that to their body, and now they're communicating to my body in a better, in a more healthier way. All right. So interpreting your emotions actually help to build that trust with your body and a peace of mind. All right. So I had one client said that once I learned to name my emotions, I actually stopped apologizing for them. And that is the most liberating feeling, to like not apologize for your emotion. And I'll tell y'all the story that I was a crybaby coming up. So it was like, cry baby, cry, whip you, whip it. I put your hands on your hip, honey, let your backbone slip. Oh, take it to the east and take it to the west, take it to the one that was a song though that I went off. But the crybaby cry part was definitely what I got teased about. So when I got older, it was like I would feel like I wanted to cry, but I had judged it as wrong, right? So I had defined that as a bad emotion. And when I started to define it, I stopped allowing the emotion to inform me with what I needed to know. And when I started to define it as bad, crying as bad, I literally had a storehouse of emotions that I was detached from. So much so, like I said, when I was in my 30s, I just felt like I was dying on the inside, and I was absolutely numb. I had a state of apathy where I just didn't even care anymore. Like, I just don't care, you know? And it was so far from the person that I feel like God had created me to be, because I know that I'm a very emotional person. I cried about everything, right? I cried when I saw people in pain. I cried when I saw people happy. Like, I am a crier. So getting back in tune with that person, like sometimes I could be riding to work, and because I know that I'm in this thawing season, like tears could just be running down my eyes. And I am not trying to define like what's wrong with you, Sheila. I just like, oh, okay, what are you trying to tell me? Right? Like, thank you or whatever. Like, these tears could just be flowing, and I'm just okay. I'm so okay with that, because it's like I know that I'm in the thawing process. um, and yeah, and it's okay to cry. So now I cry when I watch movies, I cry when I'm talking to people, right? I just allow these emotions to come up, because I knew that when I was a child, I was very much an emotional person. All right. And research shows that naming emotions actually reduce the amygdala activity. So, and it increases emotional regulation and improves self awareness. All right. So, we got those 10 truths that I really want to talk about before we close out today about energy and emotions. Okay. So, these 10 truths was designed to really help you understand that emotions are not your enemy. They're just essential. They're essential guides for your life. Okay. Number one, emotions are messengers, not mistakes. Yeah. So your feelings aren't wrong. They're wise. All right. And they're gonna be wise every time you feel them. Now, if they're stuck in a pattern because you're patterned, right? Then they're only still allowing you to know what? That you're patterned. If you keep feeling sadness, right, that sadness may be coming as a consequence of its relationship to the thoughts that you're patterned or your beliefs that you're patterned to have, right? And so we have thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, they all work together. And so if you find yourself always feeling sad, then it's the wisdom of sadness that's trying to communicate that maybe you need to go back and check your thoughts. If you've done so much, let's be with our thoughts for a minute, all right? So they're showing you what you need to pay attention to. Number two, suppression stores stress in the body. Again, those neuropeptides, we want to move that, right? When you don't express your emotions, you start to carry it. And we can carry it in our weight, right? We can carry it in our coping mechanisms, right? Be it, our use of drugs or alcohol or whatever, the way we eat, we can carry it in our behaviors, right? So we start to carry it and it starts to really become like fatigue and tension and anxiety and disconnect in our bodies, you guys. All right. Now, there are just times like I say, I'm 20 pounds up, right? So I was like 175 last year. I'm like 195 now, like 190, 195. So people see me and they're like, oh my gosh, right? But a big part of that is the emotions that I felt in this season. Now, this season of being a CEO, getting my doctoral degree, right? There was emotions that in my mind I felt like I couldn't express because nobody really understands like what it is to be a doctor, or some of it was emotions that I definitely allow myself to feel. Um, but it just came with the territory, right? Like I'm still in the middle of building this business, or I'm still in the middle of, figuring out this co-parenting relationship, or I'm still in the middle of this thing. So this emotion is very much still alive, right? And so when I come to a point where I can either bring that to a resolve or whatever, then I feel like the weight will release with that. So some emotions are not just like um how do I want to say it? So some emotions are there because of what you're experiencing in that season of your life. Okay. All right. So suppression actually stores stress in our bodies. And so we don't want to suppress those emotions. We want to feel those. All right. And we want to be well aware that, hey, it's a heavy season for me. It's a laboring season for me. It's a sad season. And we go into those coping mechanisms. We just want to have compassion for ourselves when we're doing that. Number three, naming emotions create regulation. So again, language brings safety, right? So when you start to name what you feel, your nervous system begins to calm. All right. Number four, judgment of emotions deepens the emotional loop. So saying I shouldn't feel this doesn't help. All right. It keeps you stuck. So compassion actually moves your emotion forward. All right. And again, if you want a copy of the emotional wheel so you can understand what your emotions are, I will post one in the comments. So if you join the Elevating Life group, you'll see one in the comments, or I will just post one I'll post one as a post. All right. Number four, again, judgment of emotions deepen the emotional loop. So we just don't want to say what you shouldn't feel and all of that. Your body is wise. So you're feeling what you should feel. Now, it may be misaligned, right? It may be misaligned, may not be what you want to feel, but that's all a part of the, thoughts, core beliefs, right? So you may want to feel happy, but your pattern to distrust in your thoughts and your core beliefs, right, are patterned in a way that doesn't even invite the emotion of happiness and peace. And so you got to go in and do the work to correct your core beliefs, right? And to really mind your thoughts so that you can start to feel like a different type of emotion. All right. Number five, feelings aren't facts, but they do carry wisdom. So your emotions may not always be telling you the truth, right? May not always tell the full truth, but they will always point you to the truth in your lives, right? So There are times where, your emotions are just based on a belief that's not true. All right. So your emotions are not always telling the full truth, but they are pointing to some truths in your lives. Number 6, avoiding emotions often resurface as patterns. So what you don't feel, you'll repeat. All right. Healing starts with being honest first. All right. Number 7, guilt and shame are not the same, you guys, and we must separate them. All right. This is so important. Guilt and shame are not the same. I want you to repeat after me. Guilt and shame are not the same. So we must be they must be separated. Guilt says I did something wrong. All right. So so uh to Toto, I mean TT, Latasha. Latasha said I feel guilty for setting boundaries. I mean, I feel like I did something wrong when I set this boundary. Okay. That's guilt. Shame is I am wrong. Okay. Only one can lead to growth. The other one will keep you stuck. So guilt is like I did something wrong. Okay. Shame is I am wrong. I am wrong for setting the boundary. I am wrong for wanting more in my life. And so many of us is carrying shame in a sense and taking ownership of things that ain't even yours. All right. But the guilt of I did something wrong. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Okay. Like to really like reword that that you didn't do something wrong, but to take ownership and say, I am wrong for setting boundaries. I am wrong for wanting more. I am wrong for whatever it is. That is shame. And that is a deeper thing that affirmations and a lot of stuff just can't fix. And we need to know that guilt and shame are not the same. All right. Number 8, feeling fully is not indulgent, right? It's an integrative. So you don't need to earn the right to feel. Emotions make you whole, all right, not weak. Number 9, the nervous system interprets safety through honesty. So pretending that you are okay doesn't calm your body. It's telling the truth does. So remind you, you're in your body, all right? And you know how you feel. And there's a witness called your nervous system that's watching you, the driver, say, I'm fine when somebody asks. And that nervous system is like, but you're not fine. Why are you lying? Why are you lying to them? So now I can't trust to give. Now I can't trust you in a sense, right? It's in a sense it's saying, "What? Now I can't trust you, right? Because you're not being honest." And I really do feel like that's why the Bible says the truth will set you free, because the Bible understands that there's a witness that watch you deceive yourself and others. And until you can set in your truth and have the integrity to feel all of the feels that come up with bearing your truth, because telling your truth is not simple, right? But when your witness, the witness inside of you can witness you speak your truth, right? Then your nervous system goes from fight, fight, freeze, or fawn, emotional disconnect, like, okay, I can trust you now. All right. And we can start the healing process, and you can get in the driver's seat, and I'm not going to conflict with you as much, because there's a sense of integrity, right? And so now we're on the same page and we're in relationship, me, myself, and I. Okay. And that has to be in congruency before you can do it with other people outside of you. And like I said, you're witnessing, right? You're witnessing yourself lie. So you witnessing yourself to saying that you're okay when you really know you're not okay. Now, is every situation for you to say that? No, right? There's not, every situation is not for you to, be walking down the street like, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. But you definitely want a space where you are being honest about, with yourself, with God, and with the trusted confidant about how you're feeling, right? And so your nervous system can witness that. All right. All right. And then number 10, emotional literacy is how you return to self-trust. So when you understand your feelings, you stop gaslighting yourself, all right? And you start believing in yourself again, all right? And we are the biggest gaslighters to ourselves, believe it or not. We gaslight ourselves all the time, all right? So let's go into our biblical wisdom on today. Psalms 139 and 23. Search me, O Lord, and know my heart. test me and know my anxious thoughts. Listen, simply interpret it today. God isn't afraid of your emotion. He invites them. He welcomes your anxiety, not as sin, but as a space of connection, you guys. And neuroscience actually supports this by saying naming anxiety and fear reduces the stress hormone output and activates your brain's emotional regulation system. So this aligns with the invitation to really bring your emotions into conscious awareness, not suppress them. All right. All right. Um, our Proverbs 4:7. In all you get what? Get an understanding. Listen, in all you get an understanding. The interpretation, simply put, is you don't need more control, you need more clarity. All right. And your emotions are meant to be understood, not feared. All right. And neuroscience supports this by saying emotional understanding increases cognitive flexibility, reduces reactivity, and supports your nervous system health. All right. So this is science based behind this spiritual understanding. So I got to ask you, what is this emotion trying to teach you? All right. And what have you been afraid to hear? All right. All right. Listen, we've had a great week this week. All right. So this wasn't just about a lesson, it was the rehearsal for the real you. All right. Really rewriting your script is so important. On Monday, we talked about your love of self, that you're not obligated to live the story that they handed you. You stop playing the charge was for you to stop playing a role and pick up the pen, right? One line. I think that's what we said on Monday, right? That your life starts one line at a time, right? So you stop, the goal was for you to stop being who you were trained to be and really start becoming who you were designed to be. And then on Tuesday, we talked about those interactions or those relationships that we have with other people. Because we know that when I start to write my story, right, when I'm in isolation and I'm self-love, everything's cool. It's only when I start interacting with people that I see the problem. All right. So we talked about interactions. And here's the thing, we talked about you get to choose what a new cast, right? You get to pick these new people in your life. Like you wasn't made for the hard, you made the hard decision. You were asked to make these hard decisions to really start recasting the people in your life, moving these people if they need to be moved, right? Identifying these people, right? Like I gave that example earlier about the friend who that car just rolled by and she went from anxious to smiling, right? In some way, this individual had the ability to just bring calm right to her, right? Right. So we can cast for those positions. All right. So no more giving your lead roles to people who only show up for your silence, right? We need people in our life that's going to give us a space to speak and be who we are. And then on yesterday, we talked about focus. Clarity really birthing courage. All right. So the quest was for you to stop spinning, right? For you to set a different rhythm or set your rhythm. Okay. And to really ask you to not wait for perfection, but to start moving, right, in some type of faith or peace that everything is going to work out for your good. And the day was all about emotions or data. Don't delete them, interpret them. Listen, you stop. The quest was for you to stop judging what's being felt and really start listening to that. All right. And so today we tried to make space for, or we did make space for your emotional truth, not just for emotional survival. All right. What did that mean for you? You didn't just rewrite your script this week, okay? You reclaimed the plan. You reclaimed the pen, right? You gave yourself, your nervous system a new rhythm. You gave your inner circle a new cast. You gave your emotions a voice instead of a cage. And then in some way, you gave yourself permission, you guys, to choose the next scene of your life. And so I'm just going to ask you, are you going to be courageous enough to rewrite that script? All right, to rewrite that script. If you need help in rewriting that script, you already know you can join a project. So how do we put this into practice? I want you to name what you're feeling and write it down. Number two, ask, what is this emotion here to teach me? Number three, respond to that message with one aligned action and then breathe with every boundary and every truth that you speak. All right. And then your journal prompt for today, if I stop judging my feelings and start listening, they would what? What would they do? And then what would you do? I would what? All right. Affirmation: my emotions are valid, my body is wise, and I choose to interpret, not suppress. And then the intention for today, I will listen to my emotions with clarity, not control. And then your bonus challenge for today: choose one moment today to pause and name what you're feeling, okay, in real time. And then we got that call the challenge in that chart. So I'm calling at the end of this week and I'm asking, what script are you done rehearsing? The challenge is, what truth are you ready to live or ready to keep what truth are you ready to keep living even when no one is watching? And then the charge for today, and for this week: don't just close the week, carry the rewrite with you. All right, carry this desire to rewrite your story. All right, listen, you are not too much, you are not broken, you are feeling, and that is divine. All right, so this time you don't suppress, you interpret, you listen, and you rise to the occasion as you start to rewrite your story, because we all know what? That if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your what? You can have it in your life. Here's your emotional takeaway: your emotions don't disqualify your peace. They actually map you back to who? Back to yourself. So don't delete them, decode them. That's where real healing begins. Listen, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you on Monday for that life lesson. Till later.